190PC Express, and we're just priming through the one-step prep. Such an awesome product. Really good stain resistance, awesome adhesion, sanding properties are unbelievable. Yeah, such an awesome product. We use it on this one because I want to spray out the woodwork as a first coat primer as well for adhesion and everything. Otherwise I'd usually use my total prep to seal all the gyprock gyprock walls. But here we are, primed it up. It's weird because I always seem like the 190 takes a lot longer to prime through than the bigger machines. I don't know.
Flow rate.
The flow rate. Well, there you go.
Oh, flow rate.
The flow rate. I finally have my answer. The flow rate. That's hence why the 190 takes longer to prime. But in saying that, the 190 is such an awesome little machine. I have been using these probably for the last couple of months on every job. You know, it doesn't matter how big or small it is, I've been getting out this one. Because we do a lot of repaints as well, we usually haven't got much room to move around and dragging big machines through someone's home. It can cause a lot of damage and it's just not worthy of bringing it inside the big home when you've got a little awesome machine like this. The 190 has got the endurance pump on it too, so this pump goes all the way from the 190 to the 595. The only difference is you have a different size motor when you're going up in size. The pump is the same from the 190 to the 595, so you know you're getting such an awesome machine for what it is. You know, like I said, I can punch out, you know, put a 519 tip in it, blow out all my ceilings, blow out all exteriors with it, or you can wind it down, run like a 308 FFLP and fine tune and blow out all your woodwork as a finish. So the variety of applications and going from high pressure to low pressure, she does its job 100%. So I really love this machine. You know, I'd much prefer to probably buy this one or invest in this one over the GX 19 or the GX 21. Just I feel like with the endurance pump, you know, it can be changed a lot quicker and there's a lot less downtime on your projects. So this is what we're up to. We're just going through priming it now. Always want to make sure once you prime it, I always have just a little bucket here because my prime valve, especially in a hot day, you know, if you're going to have it sitting out on top like this or sitting in your paint, it's just more to clean. Or if you're sitting on top like that, it can dry around and it can clog up. So I always just have it sitting after I prime it. I always just have it in a fresh little pot of water. Okay, make sure before you start, check all your connections, make sure everything's tight. There's nothing worse than, you know, thinking that you've tied everything up or you might have switched over something and you haven't done it up, and then you go connect it up inside someone's house and you just make a mess. So always make sure all your connections are all nice and tight before you switch it on. Yeah, put it through, run through the primer.
No pressure gauge on the 190.
There is no pressure gauge.
What do we think about working pressures?
For me, even with my 595, even the bigger machines, I never check my pressure. So for me, pretty much with the pressure, I don't really check my pressure gauges or anything like that. A couple of reasons. The reasons are depending on the humidity, the temperature, the product that you're spraying, the tip size, the extensions, the gun, what size lead, if you're running a 15, 30, 45, whatever lead, there's always going to be a difference in your pressure. You could be running, you know, 1400 PSI one day with the exact same product. The next day it might go down or it might go up a couple of thousand PSI. You'd never know. That's what I mean. Painting and using your pressure gauge, it's not always the best. There's no way I can always walk into a job and go, hey, I'm spraying Acro enamel at 1100 PSI, and that's what I run it at every day, because it just doesn't work like that. So I always pretty much run it through the paint. I always tell my pressure with whatever it is by fine tuning my fan. So when I first set up, I'll just give you a bit of a rundown anyway. So we'll put it first off. So we've just primed it through. Turn your pressure down, flick it up. You don't always want to turn your pressure all the way up when you're trying to just flush through your water anyway. So even have it down like that so it's off. Okay, so there's nothing coming out. And then hold your trigger down and just wind it up. That way it's safe. You know what it's like sometimes when you build up your pressure in your machine, you blow it out into water and it will go everywhere. So always like that.
And you don't have a tip in.
Never have a tip in as well. You know, you're saving a lot more literage by blowing out obviously all your paint without the tip, because obviously when you put your tip in and you're blowing out all, there's more paint going through the tip than what needs to be. You know, so we always wait until we prime it. Now it's got some paint going through it, as you can see. So now I'm right to go. Turn down my pressure, turn it all the way off, put it back to prime. Okay, and now we can put and choose what tip we want to use, put it in, turn up your pressure, and away you go. So what we'll do, it's whacked in the tip. What we're doing, always my favourite tip pretty much for spraying out ceilings, walls, even in a primer or even weatherboards, is the FFLP 516. I feel like it just puts that right amount on. Perfect, perfect fan width and the perfect consistency of paint or the microns going onto your wall. So always like to run this, especially when I'm blowing out the woodwork as well with the primer as I'm going along. It's beautiful, yeah. So this is what we're doing anyway. Alright, so I'll show you how I pretty much control my pressure without no pressure gauge or anything like that. So now pressure's always down. I'll flick it to spray, turn my pressure up. Usually, yeah. So if I've only got my pressure probably a third of the way up, and I know it's gonna probably tail here, or not even. So we're just gonna work in a little bit. See, it's not tailing, so that's really cool. But in saying that, I feel like it's not putting too much on. But I'll show you what I mean when it is tailing. So now hasn't got enough pressure going through the 516 for it to atomize properly. So even having it that low, you're going to probably, even with a machine, the 190 machine, having a quarter of a way, it's not gonna. See how you can start to see its tail in there? I don't know why it's stretched all that. I can't even make a tail if I'm trying.
And that's that endurance pump, just holding that pressure so finely, so and the tips.
You know, and I want to say One Step Prep is a thin product as well. It is a pretty thick primer. So yeah, to have the 190 in the One Step with a quarter of the way up, I'm probably thinking it's, you know, sitting at about 1000 psi, and for it not to be even tailing, yeah, that's a testimony to the machine we've got running at the moment. So I'm going to whack it all the way up and I'll show you the difference. So now you can actually feel it. And away we go, 100%. Just going to do this little bit here. Over your bare gyprock, the less sanding you're going to have to do. I can guarantee going over this to the way I've the way I've sprayed out this, you're just going to have to give this the lightest coat. It's going to be smooth already because it's nice and solid. You can see from this here, you can see that, okay? You wait till that dries as a first coat compared to this. See how you can see when you spray, if you haven't sprayed it even as a first coat, you're going to end up with a lot, like it's going to be sort of burry and a rough, sandy surface. So I always make sure my first coat, the most important coat for me is my primer. If you put that on nice and consistent, you don't really have to do much sanding between your coats and you're going to end up with the nicest, smoothest walls. So that's the way I like to do it. I like to keep it nice and clean. As you can see here, like that, see that? So if I go over it properly, now look at that. So once we give that a nice sand, even this area here, see how now you're completely giving the plasterboard a shield pretty much coat. I know a lot of peeps, they just miss their first coat and then they wonder why they've got to their third coat and it still is rough. They've probably sanded so much between their coats. It's just, yeah, I'd rather spend an extra $200 on a drum of paint and make sure your first coat's solid than blowing out like this. Watering down your sealer and blowing out your coat like that. You know, that's, as you can see the difference between where I've sprayed nice and even to where it is like this. You know, like that. Yeah, it looks like it's sealed, but you can still see your gyprock coming through and all you've done is just roughened up your surface. So always have nice, even first coat. And yeah, another thing, I don't know, Mickey, you're exactly right, bro. If you're not back rolling your first coat, flood it on. But in saying that, I don't know why anyone would ever back roll a first coat on bare gyprock. I've said it so many times. It's the most silliest, one of the most silliest things I've ever heard of. For me, back rolling my first coat doesn't make sense. You've got a good primer, you've got a bare surface. Spraying it on, you think it's going to come off? Do you think that over time it's actually sucking in to the surface? Like for that to ever come off, it's just impossible. And another reason why, you want to make your walls as smooth as you can. So if you're going to be going over your walls 3 times with a roller, you're putting 3 times the nap pretty much of 3 coats with a roller. If you're rolling with a 11mm nap, okay, so that means you've rolled it 3 times. You've got 33mm of paint that's been rolled onto that wall. Where I like to spray out my first coat of primer like this, nice and solid. Give it a light sand because it's already smooth as hell, just like that once it dries. Give it a light sand, get any little nicks off and like that, okay? Imperfections in the plaster, and then I'll spray it again without a back roll, my second coat. Light sand, cut and roll my last coat. So instead of having 3 times the amount of nap rolling on your walls, I'll be only doing it once. So I'll always have a nice, tight, clean, flat looking wall, 100%. That's the reason why I do it in that process. I can even get my first coat and my second coat looking like it's finished without even doing my last coat cut and roll. So that's how solid I like to put on my coats, and that way, yeah, a lot less sanding, and you're going to get a nice, beautiful, seamless finish. That's just first coat. You wait till it dries. I'll put yours back on when that dries and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's solid. Happy days. That's what we're doing anyways. We're going to go through, spray out the rest of it. What's the time now? 9:15, 11. By 12 o'clock I want to have this all blown out, all the ceilings, all the walls, all the woodwork at first coat. We'll go have some lunch, we'll come back, I'll flick it over into the wash and wear anti-bac, put first coat of colour on the walls. Hey, this one we're going vivid white. What? Vivid white walls, vivid white woodwork, and Lexicon quarter ceilings. So that's what we're getting done. So yeah, today like I said, get it all primed, get a first coat on the walls, flick it over into the ceiling flat, spray up, finish coat my ceilings, spray up my doors and my frames, and then it's just cut and roll walls, yo. So I want to be pretty much up to that process by tomorrow lunchtime. So you got Wednesday, Thursday, half a Friday, and then we'll be ready to start cutting and rolling. So yeah, we've only been doing 6-hour days here as well, so we've only spent probably 8 hours from the start of the job until where we're at now. So another hour, so say 10 hours, and from the start of the job to where we'll be at, and everything we've puttied, sanded, taped up. What we're doing here, we're just quickly changing from our one-step prep primer to our wash and wear. I'll just give you some process on how I like to do it anyways. I've got my pressure turned down. I've just got a little bucket of water here. I haven't got too much in because all I need is pretty much enough in the bucket to go through the machine, which is usually about 1.5 to 2 litres, depending on how big your lead obviously is. But no, sorry, with your running a 15, you're probably looking at about 0.8 of a litre when you're running your 15 actually. When you're running your 30, just double it. So you're looking at about 1.5, 1.6 litres, depending on what product as well and your flow rate that's going to go through your machine. So what we're going to do, step one, primers, machine switch to prime, pressure turn down. I always like to tape these knobs up too, because you know it's like, always like to keep them clean. So just tape them up when you first get the machine, and it keeps all your dials nice and looking fresh, 100%. But here we are, we're going from this. I just usually switch it straight into here. I always give it a bit of a clean down. Doesn't take much just to give it a bit of a wipe, especially around your rock stopper.
That too if you're switching colours.
Even if I'm switching colours, a lot of the time if it's not going to be my final coat on the wall, you know, and it is a different colour, I pretty much wouldn't even do this process. I'll just pretty much switch it into my dark colour, give it a bit of a wash, switch it straight into my dark colour, and then just run it through until obviously your new colour comes out. But in saying that, it's always good just to flush it through. It doesn't help your machine, especially in a hot day as well. You know, it doesn't help if you're switching over your paint, just to throw some water in it. It gives it a good clean out, doesn't, you know, it stops or eliminates anything drying up. This is in, you know, in hot summer months. So what I've done, I've just put it into the pot of water. Okay. Turn up my pressure, prime out any paint that was in the lead, or in the machine, sorry. As soon as it starts to come out water, you can tell the difference between your paint and then, you know, your consistency with your water, thick to really thin. So now that's turned down. Now you've primed through your thing. I always just sit that in there, give that bit of a clean too. Doesn't take much. Okay. Now, new drum, bit of fresh drum to wash and wear. It's just been stirred up as well. Well, not stirred, it's just got shaken up at the shop, so we don't really have to worry about that. Right, now I've primed the machine. What we're going to do, we're going to take the tip out. We're going to switch it to spray. What I always like to do, I usually like to hold down the trigger and then I just turn it up. So this is now, we're spraying out the one-step prep, flushing all the paint back into the drum until it runs the water that we've got sucking it up from in here. Now we just turn it up. You'll be able to see the difference when it hits when it turns to water. So pretty much now, there you go, you can actually start to see it. So turn your pressure all the way back down, switch it back to prime. And now what we've done, we've taken all the paint from in the machine and from your lead back into the drum. Now we've just got water in the lead and your machine. So now what we do, get the drum, just hold it so any of the water comes out, put it in now. Okay. Now what you're doing, you're sucking up the paint through here, it's going through your machine and it's coming out your prime. That way it's on your prime now, just turn it up. As you can see, it's running water and it will just slowly turn to paint, and that way you know you've got it all the way through your machine now. Takes it a bit longer with your smaller machines to prime up. Alright, there you go, we're running paint now. Turn your prime back down, and now we just got to do the exact same thing. Run your, get the paint through your line, push out the water, come to your handpiece, through your extension and out your tip guard. So now it's been primed, switch it to your spray. Exactly the same thing as what I do. I hold my trigger down, because if you turn up your pressure and you're just spraying water straight into a water bucket, it's going to go everywhere, because you've pretty much pressurized your gun. You're going to at least have 1000 psi shooting straight into your bucket. So I always hold my trigger down like this and then slowly just turn up your pressure, and then that way you're not going to worry about shooting any in. Now just run it through until you start from where it turns to water to your paint. You can tell pretty easy as well. There you go, you can see it now. So there we are. Now we've got the paint. Now I usually turn the pressure all the way back down. Turn the pressure all the way back down. Put it back to prime. And then we're ready to put in our tip. Just doing up here, cheeky little bugger. Now you've got no pressure in your machine, or your lead's always the best to put in a tip when you've got no pressure to it. So now we're ready to go. Now we can just switch it back to the thing, crank it all the way up in your spray, and now you should be right with your whatever paint you ran through it. Now you should be right to go. There we go. So yeah, it's an easy way to switch your paints. You know, it can be hard when you're going from, you know, the same colour primer to your same colour ceilings, to your walls, to your woodwork. So it's always good to flush just through a couple of litres of water. That way you know that what product you are spraying out of your gun. And it's always good in the hot summer months as well, because it gives your machine a bit of water, and we all know we all need a bit of H2O to get us through the day 100%. So
and what spray are you using there, Josh?
We are spraying, we are using the Graco 190Pc Express. Hey, the boys that go industrial, they'll always have your back no matter what. You know, not only will they best in sales and service, they will always back the products that they sell. So if you've got a problem with it, they'll get it sorted. You know, either they'll pay for shipping and get it straight back to their shop, get it fixed and back to you, or if there's a different technical issue, they'll always get it sorted with Graco, keep you up to date with what's going on, and try to get it back to you as quick as they can, because at the end of the day, we all know what downtime on a job is. It's money and it's a lot of heartache. So yeah, you always know the boys that go will always look after you, if it's from your Graco to your Merca equipment, to your iQuip, to your Sedal. They've got it all covered, you know. Fast delivery, straight to your door in wherever you're at in Australia, yeah, 100%. So always looking after me, and that's what we need in biz. People that look after each other and help each other. You know, just